What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. And Nick, the Rams are eyeing 4 straight wins. They play host to the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. It's going to be their 3rd primetime game this season. A little bit of a funky matchup. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm all right. It's very difficult in the National Football League to win 4 games in a row. It is, especially when you start at 1-4, and it feels like every single win you're scathing by the skin of your teeth. So I am very nervous with this game. The fact that it's prime time just makes it even more funky. But hopefully by the end of this episode, I and you all will be convinced that we can take a victory away and finally be in the win column this season.
Yeah, you know what? It sounds like, or at least it feels like, that some of these out-of-conference games, the AFC East teams, have always been historically a little bit of a struggle for Sean McVay. So I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. We're going to unpack everything in this episode in relation to what happened at the trade deadline, some of the injury news as of recent, Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson being activated and back to practice, so the offensive line's getting some reinforcements, and the trajectory that the defense is on, which I'm really excited about. So Rams Dolphins, Monday Night Football. Here are the current standings. The Rams are 4-4. I think, Nick, to your point, these marginal victories have been really stressful over the past couple of weeks. It's probably one of the reasons why the Rams are only 1-point favorites at home to the 2-6 Dolphins. So the Dolphins only have 2 wins on the season. It's the Jaguars and the Panthers. They're coming off of a stretch where they've lost 3 straight for the 2nd time this year, despite arguably playing their best game of the season versus Buffalo and losing in the last second on a 61-yard field goal. And they just lost to Arizona a couple of weeks ago by, 3 points or 1 point on the final series of the game. So now they have to travel to Los Angeles on Monday night to play a team that has won 3 straight games. As I mentioned, the Rams are only a 1-point favorite. Dolphins are 2-6. Rams are 4-4. Rams are 3-1 at home. Tua was actually injured in week 2 of this season against Buffalo, but since his return, they've lost by 1 point to Arizona, as I mentioned, in the final seconds, and then the 61-yard field goal. And out-of-conference teams, out-of-conference games, Sean McVay historically, I think back to the Jets in 2020, I feel like the Dolphins in 2019. There's some funky matchups here, and it's always directly kind of related to just, being on a steady trajectory, playing good football, and then making sure you can kind of piece those things together week to week. I think the Rams have shown over the past couple of weeks against Brian Flores' defense and then Mike McDonald's defense that the offense can play well in this game. And then also the trajectory that the defense is on, just being able to generate pressures and finishing sacks. And even the secondary playing as well as they are, which leads me to a lot of confidence in this one. But still kind of a funky matchup. This Dolphins team is doing much better than they've done earlier on in the season, so it should be fun.
I don't think we have a recorded victory against the Dolphins under Sean McVay. Am I correct with that?
You might be correct. And if so, it's only been a couple of matchups. I feel like it's only been 1 so far.
I mean, it was that one 2020 matchup when Goff threw like 3. It was to his first game, I believe. Goff threw for 4 picks. It was terrible. People were telling us to bench him on Rams Twitter. It was ridiculous. And then, just the division as a whole. I mean, you got to hate it. We lost to the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl. The Bills beat us on opening night. We lost to them in 2020. Yeah. Opening night after the Super Bowl, we got dismantled by them. It just feels like one of those teams that kind of has our number. And I have our old school Jalen Ramsey mug that we used to sell at our store when he was still on the team. And now you have him coming in for a revenge game against the Rams, against Sean McVay. He was not happy with how he was dealt and shipped off after the Super Bowl winning season. And it's you put yourself in kind of a tricky situation here, because now when you start 1-4, every single game against an opponent that's 2-6 or whatever feels like it has to be a victory to get to the playoffs. So it's one you really can't afford to drop.
It's an out-of-conference game. So if you do lose, you got back-to-back out-of-conference games. So that's the only thing you could kind of hang your hat on. But to get back to a winning record, to stay within second place, first place of the division, to keep that race ongoing, you got to be able to get these wins against an inferior team. So the trade deadline came and went. The Rams weren't buyers, but they did sell on Trey White, who is now in Baltimore. So the outlook of their season, I think, changed for the better as soon as Akella Witherspoon was brought back in and Darius Williams returned from his hamstring injury. Plus, you're getting a lot of production out of guys like Jalen McCullough, Cam Kinchins, Kobe Durant, Charles Woods, and John Johnson should be returning from injury soon. So heard some rumblings about Marshawn Lattimore, who ended up with the Commanders, and Devin Lloyd from a bunch of fans, but no big moves as this team kind of continues to get healthier. But I think the one thing that I wanted to jump in that stood out in terms of statistics and how we can prepare ourselves for this game is the quick passing game and quick pressures. Because with Tua right now, the game plan is let's get the ball out quick. Like, let's stay away from some of the gimmicky stuff, but run counters, run traps, be able to get some explosives early on. And Tua right now leads the league in quick throw rate. So he's taking less than 2.5 seconds on nearly 58% of his pass attempts this season, which is the quickest throw rate in the league right now. And the Rams have struggled to defend against that this season. They're allowing the second most yards per attempt and sixth most EPA on throws under 2.5 seconds. So again, this feels like a little bit of a funky matchup for some of these in-depth statistics. And Tua's coming off of his best game of the season where he completed 25 of 28 passes, 231 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Highest total EPA the Bills have allowed per dropback in 2 seasons is this previous week against Tua and the Dolphins. So he has an 80% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 0 turnovers in his last 2 games, and has a 111.2 passer rating. Yet the Dolphins are 0-2 in both games because the defense has allowed 30 points in both games. But conversely, and this is another really interesting stat that ties into the Tua quick passing game, is quick pressures. The Rams have generated 12 quick pressures against Seattle, which was a season best, and is categorized as pressures that are generated under 2.5 seconds. So they're going to need similar production to slow down Miami's pass attack, which is one of Dean's keys to victory in this one. So if we can generate those quick pressures, we'll be in a good spot.
The Dolphins' offensive line is not as bad as Seattle's. Seattle's is one of the worst in the league, so it's going to be difficult to get to Tua. Just speaking on that 2.5 seconds on 58 of his pass attempts this season is super quick. It just reminds me of when the Bears finally decided to settle down and stop making Caleb Williams play hero ball, which was against us. And he gets the ball out quick. He's dinking and dunking it downfield. You get the ball in your playmaker's hands, and they can score a touchdown, or you just drive down there and you get a field goal. And that was enough to take us out of that game entirely because it took up a lot of clock. We always stall early on offense. Not once this season have we gotten off to a lead and was able to control the game. It's always playing from behind. So that is my major concern. If they can just, if they get the ball first and they score quickly, and then we go 3 and out, like we have been to start these games, you're not putting yourself, outside the Vikings game, you're not putting yourself in a very comfortable position.
Yeah, and you know what? In comparison to Seattle, too, some of their weaknesses up front are at guard. They're at right tackle. Their left tackle, Eric Armstead, is having an incredible year protecting Tua's blind side, and even the backup quarterback's blind sides that we've seen with Miami. And their center, Aaron Brewer, is also a stud, similar to our center, our 6th-round center, and Bo Limmer. So you need a good rotation of pass rushers. You're going to need guys like Byron Young and Jared Burse and Michael Hoyt and, all these guys to kind of come together and be able to generate some of the quick pressures that they generated against Minnesota and also Seattle. Some of the stunts they do up front, some of the Texas stunts, just being able to get players on one-on-one opportunities and be able to rush the passer consistently, get quarterbacks off of their spot, get them to have to go through their progressions and just be able to wreak some havoc in the backfield. So Mike McDaniel's offense, it's from the Shanahan tree, right? So they have a run scheme that's full of counters, traps, and misdirection. Their pass game is efficient, and it has tons of pre-snap motion, which is another staple of the Shanahan scheme. And I think it can be really explosive throughout the game, which is pretty obvious when you have a player like Tyreek Hill constantly stretching the field. And then the combination of Achane and Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright in the backfield. Achane is their 2nd leading target getter. So I would expect a lot of a big chunk of screens and dump offs to him in the backfield. And that's their idea. Like we were looking at Seattle last week, like what the hell is Seattle's identity? This is their identity offensively, is speed. And the Rams defense is currently playing their best football which is giving me some signs of encouragement. But to be able to kind of get better each week and progress leads me to believe that they could slow down this offense. And it's something that Arizona and Buffalo weren't really able to do in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're kind of shifting our identity right now. We're not just the Matthew Stafford save us team anymore, which is kind of what it felt like last year in a way. Not really having like a strong defensive front. But now, I mean, with the explosive game where you get to the quarterback 7 times, your young defensive front and your 103-yard pick six, it's like these young guys are stepping up. So you have like playmakers on both sides of the ball. So you really just start to become just a dangerous team. Miami definitely struggles with the identity right now just because of the injuries that kind of plagued their season. But speed is absolutely what they want to be. That's how they make their bread and butter. You got Tyreek Hill just running as quick as he can to Tua with the moon ball. But, we're kind of in a good position right now with our defense. And I think that is something where, if you get down there and you can make a pick on one of those plays, completely change the game. I mean, what is it? 3-4 games in a row where we recorded an interception? So something like that. Yeah.
Indeed.
Like that.
Yeah, 4.
We definitely didn't say last year.
No, I know. And it's something that you didn't feel was capable in the beginning of this season. So yeah, the defense is playing really well. This is via JB Long. Since the Rams came home from Chicago at the end of September, they're 4th in defensive EPA. And after the week 6 bye, they're 1st. So they're playing really good football defensively. In that stretch, they've only allowed 79 points, points allowed 79, points scored 22. So the defense has scored 22 points on their own, and they're averaging only 14.25 points per game against since their week 6 bye. So it's pretty impressive. I just have a ton of confidence in terms of like weeks 5 through 9. They're ranked 7th in success rate and 4th in total EPA. So I mean, even the last 4 weeks, even, not counting the weeks right after the bye, they've been playing really good football. And you got to contribute it to guys like Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, and even some of the guys in the secondary. So while I feel like the Dolphins pass rush isn't necessarily a strength, they've been struggling to rush the passer. They're towards the bottom of the league in sacks and pressures. The Rams are at the top of the league right now in terms of total pressures. And you see it across the board against their brand new fearsome foursome. The secondary is playing really well. So that's more of what Miami's defensive identity is the talent in the secondary, guys like Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey.
Very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that the secondary is extremely talented. You look at Ramsey, you look at Fuller, you look at Kadar Kaho, who all have 20-plus targets right now as the nearest defender and have allowed negative EPAs in all of these situations. The Dolphins are one of 5 teams with 3 defenders to allow negative EPAs on 20-plus targets. So they're only allowing 183 passing yards per game, which is top 5 in the league. But before we jump into some of the keys to victory for the Rams offense, I want to talk about the Rams' offensive line, right? Because we mentioned, again, reinforcements back. Designated to returning to practice, offensive lineman Steve Avila, offensive lineman Jonah Jackson. So we're getting back to full strength up front. And a quote from Sosa here, one of our good buddies: "Apologies to all the teams left on the Rams' schedule in advance. Shit is about to hit the fan." And I think that should leave some Rams fans encouraged, right? Because offensive line hasn't given up a sack since the Raiders game. So back-to-back games against Minnesota and Seattle where Stafford wasn't sacked, and now they're getting their reinforcements back. So one of the keys to victory, I guess this is our second keys, is no drop-off with Rob Havenstein. Because Rob Havenstein is going to be missing this game, and Joe Noteboom or Warren McClendon are going to be filling in on the right side. Plus, if Jonah Jackson plays 3 years, $151 million for that contract, if he isn't significantly better than undrafted Justin Dedich, then I think this team's in for a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, we had that one bad holding call on Dedich, but I mean, he didn't kill us last week.
No, he's been playing really well.
Yeah, it's sure. I mean, I feel like we're just not really. We haven't been taking good swings with our offensive line contracts, just in general.
Well, you look at Joe Noteboom, 8th biggest cap hit on the roster, one of the worst contracts in football.
Yeah.
And I don't, Steve Avila is an interesting one. Yeah, I know. It's we don't even want to talk about it. Steve Avila, though, I think is an interesting one in this game. And just the way that they construct their offensive line, I think is going to be really interesting because if Avila and Jonah Jackson are both healthy, then you got to take Didich, you got to take Bo Limmer both off the field, which I'm kind of expecting for their offensive line to be left tackle Alaric Jackson, left guard Jonah Jackson, center you keep in Bo Limmer, you continue to rest Steve Avila. And Bo Limmer's playing incredible football right now. Right guard Kevin Dotson, and then right tackle Joe Noteboom, because you got to get him on the field in some capacity. And like I mentioned, the Dolphins' pass rush is not that great, so I feel like this is a benefit to the Rams in terms of their offense. And if you were to reshuffle, it would be okay in this game because 10 sacks ranks 30th. They're not forcing any turnovers, hardly any. Four interceptions, that ranks 25th in the league. And to compare, Jalen McCullough has 4 of his own and only 2 fumble recoveries. So hoping that a reshuffle doesn't kill this team.
Sean McVay was just on the Cowherd show talking about, like, pace of play and everything. And he was describing how the Raiders game, the play calling was more conservative because they were liking what they were getting from their offensive line, and then versus Seattle where they felt like they had to be more aggressive in certain points because their offensive line allowed them to be more aggressive, and Servant Stafford was able to have more time. So it's going to stem a lot from what we're getting from these guys up front, and if you have Alec Jackson stepping up in a left tackle spot, sky's the limit. Yeah,
I mean, that's exactly right. Because same with Jonah Jackson, same with Steve Avila, because you've gotten a lot of these players to step up for you already. But offensive line is all about continuity. So I'm just kind of worried if you do switch some of these players. And obviously, Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, Pro Bowl caliber players, but you got some really good continuity up front. You're rolling. You've won 3 straight games. So I'm a little bit concerned, but considering the Dolphins' pass rush isn't that much of a threat, I feel like they'll be okay regardless. But I think the Rams' offensive approach in this game is going to be really interesting. We talked about the Dolphins secondary, so the big revenge game for Jalen Ramsey. I mean, it just is. I'm sure he's going to want to be able to make plays similar to how Ernest Jones was impactful in the blitz game last week. Just getting Matthew Stafford off of his spot, forcing him to make some timely throws and to speed through his progressions. So the Dolphins, I feel like, are an interesting team, right? Because they're not strong up front. They're second level in terms of their linebacker play isn't that great, but their secondary is really talented. So I think another one of our keys to victory in this to get all 3 keys needed to advance. Continue the offensive approach of keeping everything looking the same pre-snap. Dan Orlovsky did a really good job just in the Matthew Stafford boot game. He clipped like 4 or 5 clips of Matthew Stafford rolling to his left, going through his progressions, finding 3 or 4 targets, and having everything look the same pre-snap. Obviously, the pre-snap motion is great. Shifting players from one side to the next in the last second and being able to disguise some things so that you never know where the ball is going. He showed 4 separate clips where 4 separate players got targets on the same look. So, I mean, it's just a really good job of Sean McVay being able to scheme some things up. And I think playing a little bit of a mix of 11 and 12 personnel, staying consistent with the run game. If the Dolphins struggle in one area specifically versus the pass or versus the run, it's against the run. They've allowed 120 yards per game on the ground. So play with the lead and hit on some explosives early and often. I think that's a massive, massive key to victory.
I'll give you a key. I'll give you Nick's key. Don't get ejected for punching a guy in the neck.
Yeah, I think that would be a big one. You know why? Yeah. That's a big one because Matthew Stafford is averaging 288.5 yards over the last 2 games and 3 touchdowns per game since Puka and Kupp and Cooper Kupp returned to the field in week 8. So no punching in the face. We need Puka and Kupp on the field.
Yeah, it's just when they went down, you kind of start thinking. I mean, we were here. We were talking about like the future of the franchise and moving on from them and what it looked like. And now they're back, and it's like, which is why it was such a big deal when Puka got knocked out of that game, or knocked somebody else out of the game and knocked himself out, however you want to phrase it, because you see the numbers. There's such a better team such a better offense when those 2 are on the field. Yeah. So stay on the field, stay healthy, And I mean, hypothetically, you should be able to at least keep up with the high-scoring Dolphins offense.
Yeah, one of our followers made a really good point. They're like, Puka had, 4 targets and 1 reception, and he was watching the game from the locker room, and they were like, hey, at least Puka's not hurt. Like, Puka got another week of free rest, and the Rams still came away with the victory. So I was like, you know what? That's a really good way of looking at it. So that's going to be that's my mindset going into this week. You look just in terms of the injury report. Puka doesn't have a questionable game status. Like, he's going to be revved up and ready to go on Monday Night Football. Plus, you get the extra day because it's Monday night versus Sunday. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. And encouraging
just start one game hot. Don't drop the ball. I feel like every first offensive drive, there's a Puka drop or a Kupp drop, and it's like, oh, that's on me, my bad. Like, get out there, you're at home, like, start hot, score, like, drive fast, and then get to that point. Even in the Vikings game, Vikings got the ball first, and they did that, so we had to do that right back to kind of stay in it. So you just never want to just maybe get the ball first and then just score. That's the only. I feel like if they can do that, all these games could be to the point where you're feeling so much more comfortable going in. But
they always seem to win the coin toss to start the game, and then when we go to overtime, they're 0 for 2 in coin tosses. Maybe you get some luck in overtime next time. You got to go in overtime with the coin toss. Matthew Stafford calling heads, maybe call tails next time. Tails never fails. I think this one's going to be interesting too because of the pre-snap thing. I think the Dolphins are a team that always practice against pre-snap motion because they do it a ton too. Rams are number 1. I think Dolphins are top 5. And guys like Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, they're going to be one step ahead. They know how to, kind of limit this stuff. But I mean, the Rams with their pre-snap motion, being able to undress coverage, being able to identify tendencies and create more leverage and space in this defense, I feel like it's going to be really important. I just have all the confidence in the world that the Rams are going to be able to come out, considering and play really good football, considering the performances against 2 of the top defensive minds in football right now, in Brian Flores and Mike McDonald in back-to-back weeks. So we shall see. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be confident in the Rams in this game. The spread makes me a little wary. The change-ups on the offensive line make me a little scared. The quick passing game for the Dolphins makes me a little scared.
Yeah.
But, there's reasons to believe.
Even under Raheem Morris, that always felt like the key to beat us was just get the ball out quick. It was why it was so infuriating watching those Jimmy G teams always beat us because he would just get the ball off in like 2.3 seconds. They get 7 yards, and all of a sudden they're in the red zone. And it's just like, your lack of creativity and your lack of big chunk plays is kind of what's, keeping you alive. And then the minute they start taking shots, that's when we can start having like real defensive plays. But the Bears never had to take those shots. So
right. Seattle took a ton of shots on free plays and they still came away with a loss. Yeah, a couple of things like that. The quick passing game is, I think, the best way to negate a player like Aaron Donald, right? I mean, that's why they did it. And it's such a big part of the Kyle Shanahan scheme to be able to attack the middle of the field, attack linebackers. So, I mean, that stuff does work. And when you have such a talented quarterback like Matthew Stafford, you're always trying to take some shots. And then you got guys like, Geno Smith and Brock Purdy, where you just kind of want to be able to dump off across the middle. Tua, get the ball out of his hand, avoid concussions, that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be a good one. I am predicting a Rams win, and I think my lock of the week is going to be Rams money line.
Interesting.
You got that on your list this week for Nick's picks, or?
I mean, let's see.
Let's see. All right,
ready?
We're ready. One more time. All right, Nick's picks. Do your thing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nick's Picks. Had a rough week last week for multiple reasons, one of them being my picks. So, unfortunately, no theme song. My heart isn't in it right now, and I apologize for that. But we still have games to bet on and money to make. So, let's get the ball rolling. Dean just told us what his lock was. It was Rams money line. Do you want to throw in Kyron anytime touchdown in there? I feel like you usually do like a player parlay as well.
Yeah, I'll parlay with Cooper Kupp scoring the first touchdown of the game. Because I saw that odd is like that's odds are they're at like plus 700, plus 1,200 or something like that. So why not? Throw $10 on it. You don't want to risk a lot of money on any of my locks anyway. So
Yeah.
Low risk, high reward.
Do you remember what it was last week?
I don't know if I had one last week.
I don't think so either. All right. Well, moving on. Let's start with Falcons at the Saints. I think the Falcons are proving not to be more than they bargained for. They are exactly what they bargained for. I've been impressed by what they've become. They have the leadership, a good quarterback, then don't break defense. I mean, they kind of remind me of 2021 Rams, right? I mean, they bring in the old but spunky quarterback. They destroy the lesser opponents in their division, and they literally have Raheem Morris. Falcons are -3.5, and that just seems kind of rude when you're going up a 2-7 Saints team that just lost to the Panthers last week. I think it might be time to start looking at some Falcons futures. Falcons to make the playoffs, Falcons to win a playoff game. Their division odds are super high, but frankly, they don't have any competition. They're 2-0 against Tampa, who's the next closest team. So I don't see why you wouldn't take that. But all over the Falcons this week, they had a really great game against Dallas, a team that they needed to win Dallas needed to win to keep their season alive, and Tampa just rolled over on them. So I love the Dirty Birds here at -3.5, 27-20 Falcons victory.
I think that was my lock last week, was for the Cowboys to lose and for their season to start collapsing.
That's true. Yeah, you did say that. So Dean's locks are currently 1-0.
Yeah, starting fresh as of last week, or 0-6 to start the season. All right, so you got Falcons -3.5. I think I like this bet a lot because the Saints are playing terrible football. Just fired their coach, but we know what happens when the interim head coach steps in.
No, the new coach theory. I totally forgot they fired their coach. Oh, man. Everybody always plays up when they fire the coach.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Damn. Oh, well. I still like the Falcons.
I do, too. I think that's fine. What do you got next?
Patriots at Bears. How many teams are going to score in the last minute of a game and not go for two? Last week, 3 game-tying touchdowns are scored with under a minute left. The Bucs, the Seahawks, and the Pats. Not a single one of those teams went for 2. Idiots. Savages. I just don't understand the Pats' point of view. You're not really needing to win any games. So I guess that's the thought process, but you had an opportunity to give your rookie quarterback a shot to be a hero there and win in Nashville after a 0-0 on the clock touchdown. That was remarkable. It just doesn't make any sense to not go for 2 there. Same with the Bucs. Like, you're 1 play away from being the undefeated Chiefs. It's dumb. Whatever. Doesn't matter. All of that being said, I think Drake May is going to crumble against this Bears defense. That's what I'm trying to get at up there. The Titans defense were able to hold him back outside of that one final play that shouldn't have never even been a touchdown. I think the Bears defense is stomping on real opponents week in and week out. They stomped on us, stomped on the Commanders big time. I think you'll have a similar game from Caleb when he played us, like I was talking about. Nothing flashy. Make the easy throws, dink and dunk. That'll be plenty to beat this Patriots team. I think the Bears are just going to continue to roll over these worser teams. 29-19 Bears win. I think they cover the -6 easily. And I love the over 38.5. I just think overs this year are just hitting like wildfire. And that number is just way too low. I know it's teams that are supposed to be defensive minded, but it's just too low of a number.
It's just, the only concern is the Patriots offense putting up their fair share. So,
yeah, I guess that's true.
But I mean, 30.5 is low. So I do like both bets. What's next?
Jets at Cardinals. The cocaine Cardinals are back because they're Jekyll Hyde, Jekyll. They're the team that you just can't really put your finger on. Like, how are you going to be winning some of these games? How did they beat the Dolphins by 1 point and the Niners by 1 point?
Yeah, I don't know. And didn't they win last week? No, I think they won pretty.
Yeah, no. The Cardinals beat the Bears last week.
Yeah, no, I know they won, but I don't think it was like a 1 point game or anything like that.
They kind of just
shut them down.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really trust Kyler, and you cannot trust Marvin Harrison Jr. for shit. I took a giant gamble on him in fantasy, and so far it only paid off for one singular week. Which week was it, you ask? Why, it was the week I played Dean, of course. The Jets walk off Thursday night with a win, and I think they're going to start fighting their way back to 500. I don't know if they ever get there, but I think that they have the pieces to be able to get there. I know you shouldn't ever bet on the Jets, but we bet on them last week and they won. They love to break hearts. But whatever. I'm trusting my heart here because I want to see the Cardinals start losing some of these close games. I'm taking Jets money line over the Cardinals. Jets winning the shootout, 37-26 Jets.
I actually like that one. I think the Jets kind of come back and win that one. Cardinals are hot. They need to be cooled down, and I think the Jets are playing some better football than they played in the first 6-7 weeks of the season. So I like that. You got a quick pick for us?
Yeah, and then we're going to run it back real quick. Falcons -3.5, Bears -6, over 38.5 in Bears, Jets money line, and then my quick pick. I'm going to run with you. Of course, it's the Los Angeles Rams in prime time. I just think, they should be able to beat this Dolphins team. When you are, returning from the fire like the Phoenix, you see a team with 2 wins. You kind of just have to brush them aside, and hopefully next week they can do that again with the Patriots and just
And then at that point you're looking at 6-4, and then the rest of your schedule is a little bit trickier. But I mean, at least you're looking ahead. You got a winning record, and you're playing good football. Is all we could ask for, considering the way that this season started. I want to remind everybody too. Like and subscribe. And as always, this episode is brought to you guys by Autograph. Download the Autograph app, referral code RAMSBROS. When you download, get discounts to merchandise, get discounts to tickets. All you got to do is consume Rams content in the app, listen to podcasts, consume articles, and you guys will be rewarded just for being a Rams fan. So we greatly appreciate you guys, greatly appreciate Autograph. Nick, I greatly appreciate you. Rams, I also appreciate you potentially getting 4 straight wins this season. I think it's going to be a fun game. It's Monday Night Football. It's prime time. The kid in me, whenever you get to watch your team in prime time, especially on Monday Night Football, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of good juice. And this young energy from this defense is keeping me young. It's keeping the gray out of my beard. So we'll see.
Go Rams, baby. I feel good. I got to it. We're at the end of the episode. I feel like they're going to win.
Me too. There we go. That's how it works. All right. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Go Rams.